When is the last time you listened to a podcast about web development, web design, and small business and didn't fall asleep? Yes, we cover web development, web design, and small business, but like actual human beings with personalities. If you're a beginner, we're not going to talk over your head. It's more like asking your buddy for help. We have guests, we have fun, and let me tell you, these two can get off on a tangent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HTML All the Things Podcast. This is Matt Lawrence and Mike Curran.
That's right, everybody. We are back, and this is episode 120. What's wrong with web development? I'm Mike, apparently. I'm Matt, excuse me. That's Mike, and this week we'll be discussing all that is wrong with web development. Then in the web news, the M1 Max, and I haven't been informed about this, so Mike will be talking about it, and then some console talk, which is sort of my realm in that case. Now, if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on that Patreon, leave a review or rating on your podcast app, join us in our Discord server, or share this with your friends. And now it's time for our weekly pain points, so Mike, please take it away.
Actually, it's Matt now. I'm officially renaming myself Matt. So that's it.
I'm all screwed up because we had like the most ridiculous conversation before this, and I was gonna make it the Patreon bit that we discussed, but it was so ridiculous that I want it to be a surprise if we do it. So it should be. I'm still creeped out about it. I'm not gonna say anything else, but I'm fully creeped out. It's questionable. I'm rattled. I'm rattled for this entire episode now. All right, weekly pain point. Here we go. So Google Photos. I don't know if everyone else got the message. I don't know if anyone else uses Google Photos, but essentially what is happening is going from unlimited original quality storage to only 15 gigs of photos and videos. And this kind of puts a wrench in people's plans to store their photos, because I think a lot of people, at least around me, were using Google Photos as like their backup for their photos, so they didn't have to pay for any sort of cloud storage. Now, some clarification for people right now. This doesn't mean that the photos that you currently have are all of a sudden just going to take up that 15 gigs of space and you're going to be, shit out of luck. What it means is that everything up until, I believe, there's a date sometime in 2021. It's going to happen a year from now. Sometime in 2021, there's going to be a time when anything after that date is going to start counting towards your 15 gigabyte cap. So everything before that, anything that you have in Google Photos now, and up till that point is still free, still unlimited, still in the storage. It's only after that date. Now, again, I'm not trying to be a Google apologist or anything like that, because it kind of sucks that we're losing this feature. But on the other hand, realistically, like it is storage and it does cost money. And nowhere did they say that they were giving you unlimited storage for life. So they would never do that, to be fair. Like, exactly. No company's going to be like, don't worry about it forever.
Forever, yeah, exactly. So, like, I mean, what did we expect? And because of that, I always assumed that there was going to be this thing happening. So I was using it as my backup storage. But then I switched to Amazon Photos a while ago, because they have, I think, a terabyte. Or they have an unlimited storage of photos,
not videos. Videos are limited. Not videos. You can pay, but
exactly, not videos, but photos up like in whatever quality. So all my original quality photos go on Amazon. I still use Google Photos as like a secondary backup.
You got to be a Prime member to be fair, like to be clear to the audience as well.
Prime gives you a lot of benefits, by the way.
I literally save hundreds of dollars a year by using Prime, and no, they are not an episode sponsor.
no, they're not. Well, plus the shows, like the Prime Video is really good. Prime, like the free music included with Prime is also okay. Like, it's not great. It doesn't have everything, but if you're, if you don't want to pay for Spotify and you already have Prime, you have something at least. You have like your, curated playlist, stuff like that. So it's just, there's a lot there. Like, there's a lot of little features that they add, including this unlimited storage of photos, original quality photos, no video. So for video storage, that's going to be a tougher one for me. I might have to do something where I either, purchase something from Prime, since I'm already using that, or I just use my OneDrive. We'll figure it out. It's also going to depend on how much storage it's going to start taking up on Google Photos. Because from what Google's saying, usually 15 gigs at original quality, so regular quality, not original, but high quality photos, is usually enough for a regular person for about 3 years, which seems a little bit.
No, that's right.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's what they said. But it seems like I would take up more, but their compression is very good, right? So their video compression is extremely good due to YouTube. Like they're using the exact same algorithm for YouTube. In fact, I believe the storage of the video is actually happening on YouTube servers as well. Same with the encoding and decoding. Yeah. So because of that, I feel like I'll be able to get away with the 15 gigs for a while. And then on the other side of it, I actually do pay for Google One. So this is kind of irrelevant for me.
So wait a sec. So you're uploading for free to Google Photos just before you jump into the Google One.
It doesn't eat into my Google One storage, but yeah.
Because you're uploading at the quote unquote high quality or whatever, which is technically compressed to an extent, but it's still good. It's not original quality, but whatever. And then you're paying for Google One, which is what?
So that's like the OneDrive storage upgrade. So that'll, anything that I put in the OneDrive, it'll store inside of Google Drive, which will be a certain amount of money for the Google One. And to clarify, I'm doing this because my wife and I both use Google Drive quite a bit. We use it a lot, like between each other. I use it for just storing my personal files as well. So it does add up. Like, I recently had to even upgrade my plan. Like, I had 100 gigs already, so now I'm going to 200 gigs. So that's, I think, $3.99 a month or something like that for 200 gigs. So, I mean, for me, again, I'm probably going to be okay, but I wanted to give a heads up for anyone out there that wasn't paying attention that Google Photos is going to be deprecating that unlimited storage. So you might need to think a little bit more about your storage needs, but it's not a panic, in my opinion. Again, that 15 gigs is going to give you enough storage for a while. So you have some time to figure out what you're going to do, either deleting photos or using a different service.
So I know you said you bought Google One, but are you swearing off free services? Like, are you swearing off paid services? So is there a universe in which you say, you know what, I have so much in this Google Photos, and you were actually using the Google Photos instead of your phone's local gallery app? So you're like,
Absolutely,
you know what, I use Google Photos so much that I am willing to pay specifically for Google Photos just to store my photos. For
me, yes.
So what's the limit? So are you going to allot, let's just say in terms of budget, not in terms of them pricing it, would you say $20 a month, $30 a month, $5, 99 cents a month? Like, what would you, where's your limit where you're like, I'm going back to the old SD cards or something?
Okay, so my limit, I would say, like, if I start taking ridiculous amount of photos and videos, which is possible, is probably in the $10 a month range. If that makes sense. So if it's going to be in that $10 a month, then I'm willing to pay for it to use Google Photos and continue using what I've already kind of know. Right now, I'm paying only $3 a month for both my wife and I. Mm-hmm. So it's not so bad. And we have 200 gigs of storage each. Or actually, no, sorry, it's shared storage, 200 gigs of shared storage. So I think the next plan is $10 a month. They do a jump. So they do 100, 200, and then for 10, you get a terabyte or something.
Why is it Google One, though? Why isn't it Google Drive? Does Google One come with more stuff?
I think there is some sort of other benefits. Do you have YouTube Premium? No, I don't. I wish I did. Because they gave away the free Stadia packages with YouTube Premium. Do you have YouTube Premium?
Yeah.
For how long have you had it?
Long time.
So you can get the free Stadia. I'll send it to you after this. But just as an FYI, if anyone's had YouTube Premium since before November 6th of this 2020 year.
Oh, yeah, definitely had it since before then.
There's a promotion right now where anyone that's had it before that will receive a free Google Stadia Premium edition, which means they get the controller and I think like 6 months of premium or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I'm getting a lot of tech in the last.
You're getting a lot of free stuff. So I'll send you the thing right after this podcast, though.
Well, I just like a lot of the like. Oh man, like Apple has their new subscription. We got this thing going on. We got the Game Pass Ultimate. We got the new consoles. We ordered my work phone. You got a new phone. Like, this is getting crazy. Like, what the heck's going on here?
One thing I would say is if I switched to an iPhone, which I didn't, and I'll talk about that next week. But if I switched to an iPhone, I would have canceled my Google stuff and would have went with the Apple One subscription. So I'm not going to have two, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
You're not going to have two what?
I'm not going to have both a Google subscription, like a Google One, and an Apple subscription.
Oh, I'm not getting an app. I have an iPad. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It doesn't bother me.
But if Apple was my main phone, I would be getting the Apple One subscription. I'd be canceling the Google One, and I wouldn't use any Google apps that I don't need to use.
You would use iCloud? Like you would legitimately use iCloud?
Yeah, I would legitimately use iCloud because I don't. If I was going with an iPhone, I would want to use the first party shit. I'm not dealing like I've heard such bad experiences. I know my uncle. Just not the side where we're going on a serious sidetrack here, but my uncle was using a iPhone and he was using a third-party service for backing up his photos.
Right.
And he paid for it like very minimal amounts. Like he paid like $3 for the app and that's it. And he's like, "Oh, that's perfect. Like that's all I'll pay." And then he had a catastrophic failure, lost all of his photos, and he's like, "Okay, now I can back them, like get the backup back." And all of a sudden, he has to pay $360 to get the backup of his photos because he didn't read the instructions and stuff like that. So he lost everything.
Some sort of backup app.
Exactly. So he was using like a third-party backup app that was doing everything for him, but it didn't work. So again, the other option, you could use Google Photos with iPhone, but then you have to open the app every once in a while, and I'll definitely forget to open the app, lose the phone, and then lose all my photos. So it's like, if I'm going to use the first-party applications for the first-party platform because I just want everything to be seamless. It's not cost prohibitive. It's not like I'm paying $100 a month. It's like we're talking $30 a month for Apple TV, Google Music, Apple TV, Apple Music, and iCloud storage.
Now, would you actually transfer over to I always call it iPhone Music. I don't know why that Apple Music.
I would cancel my Spotify. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so actually, I have a point about that. Not to talk massive freaking sidetrack at this point.
Yeah, massive sidetrack.
YouTube Premium comes at YouTube Music.
Yep.
YouTube Premium is only like $1 or $2, maybe $3 in Canada, more per month than Spotify. So if you are not, like, I know that there's a lot of benefit to going to Spotify. If you're a huge music aficionado, I've heard people, and I'm not, but I've heard people say that they will never get rid of their Spotify no matter what because they love the curation and all that. Power to them. It's a music lover's paradise, apparently. But if you're a person that just likes to have some music on sometimes, YouTube Music is totally serviceable. It is totally workable. It's actually not that bad. Because when I bought the subscription, I downloaded, both of the app. Well, I already had YouTube, but I downloaded the app obviously because I'm paying for it effectively, and it's only $2 or $3 a month, and you don't get the ads on YouTube. And to me, the 5+ minutes every single time I'm watching a friggin' ads that are over and over and over again. And some of the ads are an hour. Yes, you can skip them, but some of the ads were an hour when I switched. That was when I was like, okay, like I'm just changing, and like to me, it just makes sense to not have the Spotify and to just go to YouTube Music. Now, I don't really listen to music. I'm not I don't care about curation and all the rest of it. But I do like having a music service connected to my smart speakers. So if someone wants to come in and just play music while they're hanging out or whatever, then they can in any room. And that's sort of like the benefit for me. And me basically paying, I'm paying for YouTube Premium and getting that extra benefit, or vice versa, depending on if you're a music lover, is just a win-win.
Mm-hmm. So I do agree with that. Pretty much wholeheartedly. The only reason that I haven't switched to YouTube Music at the time, like I've been on Spotify for a little while. I was on Google Play Music for a while before that.
Right.
As soon as they announced that they're going to some sort of different platform, I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm going back to Spotify. Spotify had a deal at the time, so I went to Spotify. Essentially, what I'm waiting for is Google Music to mature a little bit more, to get on parity with all of that. YouTube Music to get on parity with at least what Google Play Music had at the time, which isn't there quite yet, as far as I'm concerned. And then I'll probably do that because I do like the YouTube Premium aspect of it, not having ads on your phone, not having ads on your computer and stuff like that. So that's definitely something I'm going to do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I do like Spotify. I like the curation. I like that I have a few friends on it that we can send each other playlists. That is kind of a pull factor for me. So that'll be something that I'll have to give up.
Right, that's sort of, like I said, like that's sort of the music lovers thing, or like the music aficionado, whatever, or like just an enthusiast. If you're a person that's into music in any sense in which a section of your day potentially goes to managing, listening, or sharing music, then Spotify is more than likely what you want. Yeah. Not that I can speak too highly of the YouTube Music thing because I just rarely use it. But if you're a person that has Google Assistant in your home and you have a Chromecast, I often just throw things. I also have Google Nest Hubs, so I often just throw things from YouTube onto my Nest Hubs, or I throw YouTube onto my TV via the Chromecast via my voice. And if memory serves, and I don't know if it does, I think I had to always skip from the phone. Because sometimes I'll actually pull up my phone and press cast, and it'll be like, oh, press skip ad on the phone. And half the time, like, my phone's across the room charging or something, and it's just like, oh, Christ, you know what I mean? So, like, and then sometimes you get stuck with one of those friggin' 1 hour ads, so it's not like I'm just gonna sit through it. And so I just got to a point where it just didn't make sense. Like, it was like, I was like, okay, is my 5 or more, probably, minutes a day worth this $15 a month or wherever approximately it is? Yes? All right. That's it. Buying it. It's over.
Makes sense. Now you get a free Stadia controller too, which is cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
I
also got
benefit,
a Nest Mini as well.
Yes, you did.
I have 2 spares now, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good. All right. Should we? Oh, actually, no. You still haven't done your weekly.
Oh my god! You want to still do it?
Okay.
We're going ham here. So
we went on a tangent.
Well, I mean, today was a really weird day, honestly. Yeah. This whole month, whatever, is a bit all over the place. So my weekly pain point this week is organization. Not necessarily in the work. Well, I guess both actually, kind of life wide, I guess. So ripped out a whole bunch of old wiring from my entertainment unit. Most of it was unplugged, but just sort of like I just left it hanging there. So old consoles like the 360, like the old Inhale version, the old like big PS3, all that stuff, all had the wiring still there, just unplugged. Obviously, I'm not going to waste a bunch of power with all these things just being plugged in. But just, the wiring is starting to add up at this point, especially three console generations in. So I've started ripping all that out, ripped out the old Kinect with the little stand on top of the TV. That cleared out a bunch of stuff. Started cable tying a bunch of stuff just for storage because like Mike wanted to see my cable management actually, but my cable management is literally like I literally have a wire that goes straight down and plugs in. So like that's how managed, like it's pretty well managed. It's just obviously at this point it's starting to get to the point where there was just so many cables. So luckily like I've been cleaning up and stuff like that, and also like to force myself to clean up because I'm not a person that is like very well, I'm organized, but like I'll be like, oh, I'll remember that this is on the floor in the corner type of thing. Like, I'm one of those people. There's a bunch of boxes here. Like obviously I bought an Xbox, I bought a PlayStation, so like there's a bunch of boxes around. And one of the things is that the boxes that I use to like pack up the old stuff, I like got those out of here and stuff like that. But there's like a lot of boxes of like old cables and old this and old that I've been trying to, decommission. And like I decommission it, throw it in a box, throw it over there, whatever. But like I'm really bad for just like throwing the boxes in a corner, and I actually want to like put them somewhere. So what I've done, and this is crazy, is I can't even turn my chair all the way around. I have completely boxed myself in, literally, in my office area, so that it is a challenge to leave the room like I'm tripping over boxes. And this is in order to force myself to deal with those boxes. So I've dealt with one of them, but I haven't dealt with the other like 5. And slowly but surely, probably tomorrow, because I can feel the anger building. Whenever I leave the room, it's like why? Like, crap, I gotta go through all this again. But yes, so that's how I'm tricking myself in organization. My wire management is like a lot better now. A lot of the stuff is gone, decommissioned. One more thing will be decommissioned once the PS4 is done backing up its capture gallery. And that's basically it. I'm also going to dump that into Google Photos, by the way, while it's unlimited. Dump all my PlayStation 4 stuff in there. So
that's why they're making it not unlimited.
That's exactly why they're making it not unlimited.
Makes perfect sense, yeah.
But I will say, in terms of my photo storage solution, like going beyond my organization, actually, I should say, my work phone was ordered today. So I've mentioned this before that like I want to be able to turn off the work notifications because like I'm not being paid to be on call or anything like that, and like obviously it's the web, so anything can happen anytime. And I started getting like really bad anxiety a lot of the times when I would like check my phone, and what it resulted in was me either freaking out all the freaking time sometimes or some days, or I would be like checking my phone to like talk to my girlfriend, and then end up having like a work notification completely derail me. Now I'm like worried all evening, and even though I'm not worrying, even though I'm not like going to do it because I'm not obligated to because it's late or something, it's just still like on the back of my mind, like, oh, why is that issue happening? Like, why, so I want the separation, but I also want the derailing to leave. So sometimes if I'm in there doing regular work stuff on my personal phone, which used to be work and personal phone, it like a personal thing would derail me. And then I'm derailed from doing work. And so, like, it derails both ways. And so now I'm going to be like, pick up iPhone, which is what I got. Pick up iPhone, now doing work. And if I get derailed, I'm just getting derailed by more work. And then I know when I look at my phone, like my personal phone, that I'm actually looking for a personal notification. And I'm not like scared to open the text message app because it's going to be some sort of work thing that's going to worry me. And that's like the big thing I want, is I just need that separation. Like, not that I'm going to like, disown customers or anything like that. Like, the phone's going to get tons of use. And I'm going to manage all my social media on there too. So like, I have personal social medias, and then we also have like the hat social medias. I have my other podcast social medias. And it's just a matter of it being like, okay, I need to have these social medias. And like, I'm just getting like, I've shown like Mike a few times, and I've shown other people where I literally like will drive from here to I don't know, let's just say I drive for 30 minutes wherever I'm going. It doesn't matter. The point is the time. 30 minutes out, I literally check my phone and it is filled with notifications. Like, this person liked this tweet, this person did this. And like, what ends up happening is I'm becoming numb to notifications. Whereas like, I'm looking at notification and I'm ignoring it, and then I'm literally missing important ones. So this is a part of the organization where I'm splitting it down the middle. That's it. Personal, work. The only cumbersome thing is I have to carry 2 phones, but whatever, I'll just get a dork holster, as I call them. Sorry if you use a holster. I don't actually think you're a dork, but that's what I call them. Because I've been called a dork several times for having a phone holster. So, but anyway, I'll be getting a dork holster, as I call them, and more than likely, and then I'll have that separation. So like, on like Christmas Day, that phone's being turned off. I don't care. Because I don't want that, like, because like there'd be times where it's like, take a picture for us, it's Christmas Day, family's around, take a picture, and I'm like scared to look at my phone, because it's like, Christ, like, what if that project that I finished 2 days ago, which I think's kind of rickety, what if that's like crashed, and I don't know how to fix it, and I gotta like worry about it all thing, whatever. So I need that separation. It's not going to like result in lesser customer service. It's going to probably result in better. And I'm probably going to get a lot more done, because I'm going to be able to go in and be like, oh, a Twitter notification from work, not from like my friend sending me something. And I end up missing tons of those too. That's the issue here. So I need the separation. Phone's blowing up all the time. That's it, right? So that's that. So just organization across life at this point. Just tons and tons of organization. I've been deleting old files even here and there. Like, it just feels good to clean up. To just clean crap up, which is super nice. Just getting it done, really, to be totally blunt. Even removing them, like putting them in storage. Like, I put a few things in storage, so like they've literally been removed from my immediate presence, which is even better. So I mean, I'll probably do that with some of these boxes. Putting things away into like shred piles or whatever, so like they need to be destroyed. They have like my shipping label on it or my name's on it, but I don't need that piece of paper anymore. Like, I've been doing a lot of that too, and just ripping through it. So this is the year of organization, apparently, just because I've been like trapped in here forever as well, just due to the whole lockdown, of course. But I think that's enough about me and enough about the weekly pain points. We're like almost 30 minutes into the show, and we're still doing the weekly pain points, the shortest section of the show, apparently. Watch this like main section be less than our weekly pain points. Like, this just became like a talk show.
I think it is. The other thing is that this episode is going to be very ranty. I don't know if anyone noticed how ranty it is, but we're in a very ranty mood right now, Matt and I, and the topic of the episode is extremely ranty. So what's wrong with web development?
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, actually.
Go ahead.
If we were going to name this is weird, again, off topic, but I don't care. If we were going to name this episode based on it being a talk show on television, I might need you to change your name to Lawrence. Because then you can have the Lawrence and Lawrence show.
That is ridiculous. Why?
I don't know.
Though? Like, why the Lawrence and Lawrence show? I would understand if it was like I'm Matt and this is Lawrence. That's kind of interesting, I guess.
I suppose we have Matt and Mike. Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
yeah. The M&M show.
For some reason, I just envision... This might be super egotistical, to be honest, and like totally opposite of who I am too, which is really weird. I imagine a luxury brand called Lawrence with like a big cursive L in gold.
Do it up.
And that's the.
You know what?
I
challenge you to make a luxury Lawrence brand.
What?
You'll sell a T-shirt for $800, a black T-shirt. And like
$800.
For $800, and the L will be a tiny little L, but it's going to be in actual gold.
24 karat gold.
24 karat L Lawrence, And then like a little Lawrence of Arabia thing in the background or something like that.
I've never even seen that movie. I should probably watch it so I get the reference.
Yeah, you get the luxury vibe. You gotta live the luxury lifestyle. You gotta turn up your brightness on your phone.
I imagine one of those like clone commercials where they just don't make any sense, where it's like somebody, but like what we'll do is we'll do it in my car. 17-year-old like. So we'll just like drive.
But we'll do the sound effects in an actual good car, and then it'll zoom out. Like it'll slowly it'll zoom into your like speedometer. That'll be the
Which
initial
is dusty
thing.
as hell.
Yeah, like a little bit dusty, and people are like, that's weird. It sounds like a Lambo. And it starts zooming out, and it's just like filthy car, rust, a little bit of rust everywhere. Little bit of dragon stuff in the car, and then we'll zoom out to the very back, and it's just a good old
Spider-Man seat covers are like 10 years old.
Yeah, ripped Spider-Man seat covers.
Do you know how fantastic this sounds?
I mean, you've had some pretty good ideas today for becoming viral. That's one of them.
and we just gotta end it with Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence, and then a link to buy the T-shirt for $800, and never show the T-shirt or mention it at all in the commercial. Because that's what car commercials are. Car commercials are the best. So it's like nothing to do with cars at the end of the day, and then they show like a car driving away from the scene, and the car company comes on the screen. Fantastic.
Yeah, they always have like a bunch of talking, like,
yeah,
you know when life's going the right way.
Yeah.
When the snow falls and you realize that you're able to overpower the slippery Goodyear tires, partnered with the all-new Honda Accord. Like, come on. Like, yeah. Good Lord.
God damn it. Okay. On that note, what's wrong with web development? So this week's episode, we're going to be a little bit ranty, a little bit negative, just a pre-warning. I do want to follow up next week with what's right with web development, so stay tuned for that. But we want to kind of go through what's kind of ticked us off, like what grinds our gears, what pisses us off on a daily basis when we're doing this stuff. And I think like this is a perfect time to do it because we're both kind of in that place where we're a little bit pissed off, a little bit ranty. So let's get started here. So gonna go right from the top. So ever-changing technologies. That's always tough because when you're going into this industry and you're trying to find where to learn, what to learn, and you go and look up web technologies, and like the Wikipedia page is like 800 lines long of different kinds of technologies that you could start from. And when you're in the biz, like when you're doing it and you've picked your tech stack, you're getting good at it. And all of a sudden you talk to another person in the industry and they're speaking language that you don't even close to understand. Like you've been in the industry for 10 years and then all of a sudden they're mentioning like Webpack bundlers, they're mentioning, Svelte, they're mentioning Sapper. They're like, oh, haven't you used the Svelte Sapper with the Node Express bundle? And then, you gotta get some server-side rendering on top of that. And then you got to sprinkle in some Tailwind. You know what I mean? Like, you've been in the industry for 10 years and you might have not heard a single word of what I just said. That's a realistic thing in our industry. And
you know what? I'll actually come into there too. So I'm going to talk about continuous integration or continuous whatever it is later, CI or whatever. But not to spoil that, if that's even considered a spoiler. But like I remember like, so obviously I know what GitHub is. I know how to host things, and then I know how to like back up the hosting. And then I realized the other day, I was like, if I'm building a web app and like, I don't know, let's just make up a web app. So it's a calculator app and people log in and it saves their history of their calculations that they've done. And then I was thinking, okay, well, if I want to back that up and make sure it's backed up, what I would do normally, because I'm talking small scale, not like huge. So small scale, it's probably on an Apache server on cPanel somewhere. So, back up the home directory, back up the database, and then that's it. Then I was thinking, what if I update, like, the UI? Well, okay, updating the UI is easy enough. You just replace the files and whatever else, hooray for our lives. But then I was thinking, wait a second. What if I need to update something that changes the database? Like, do I gotta pull this thing offline? Do I have to, like, you know what I mean? And then, like, I was talking to another developer, and they're like, oh, we're using Git for this, we're using this, we're using that. And I was like, it's so strange to me that, like, I understand, and for years I've understood, these different components of it. Like, I understand Git, I understand the server, I understand these commands, I know how to back things up, I understand bandwidth, I understand the performance for the most part, and stuff like that, right? Like, I'm kind of a jack of all trades in that way. But it's strange to me that, like, up until recently, we have not had a project in which this has been a thing. And now we do. I'm not going to get into what it is, but, like, we now have a project in which I have to think, well, hang on a minute, do I have to pull this offline? And it's just strange to me. Like, it's a different way of thinking, because in WordPress, you just sort of, like, re-upload the files really quick, depending on what it is, or, like, you take it down for a couple of minutes and re-upload everything, or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? It's very, like, push and pull, I find, with WordPress, where I just sort of, like, pull this out, push this other thing in, you know, whatever. And usually you do it so quick that, like, on the next refresh, the person's fine. But, like, this is a weird thing, and it's hard to Google, and there's like 100, I would presume, like 100 ways to do it. And so it's like a question of, like, okay, like, another example would be when I was learning Typo 3, what ended up happening was I was learning that, whatever, and I was using VS Code, which, again, whatever, but I was just using FTP. Like, I have in my VS Code, I have an FTP thing that is like continuous integration or whatever. It literally, like, when I save it, or I forget how I have it set up, but when I save it a certain amount of times or however it works, it just uploads the files for me, like, just throws them up there. And then I was talking to another developer that we work with, and they're like, you're FTPing it? And I was like, yeah, like, it's, you know, it's continuous. Like, it's not like I'm manually using it like FileZilla every time. Like, you know, I'm pressing save and I'm uploading this thing. And then I'm getting it, like, I'm doing the versions as I should. And he's like, oh, okay, type of thing. And not in like a weird way, but it's sort of like, and then I was thinking, like, wait, there's another way? Like, I should be doing it a different way? But when I Googled it, this is the way I found. And it just goes to show you that there's so many ways to do something, and you can miss a totally, which I presume is more modern, because, like, this person, like, codes like a hell of a lot more than I do. So, like, I would presume it's a more modern, more, probably a better way to do it, maybe? But it's just something that is, like, he had no idea that I was FTPing, and I had no idea that he was doing whatever the hell he was doing. And I just thought that's how you did it. I was like, oh, this would be nice to have a little bot that does this for me, you know? And then, lo and behold, here we are, where it's like, I don't even know what he's doing.
Yeah. And that happens all the time. That's a non-stop thing. Like, you talk to unless you're coding on the same project for, like, from start to finish, if you talk to a different developer, you're going to have completely different tech stacks, completely different ways you do things. It's so all over the place. It's difficult. Like, it's actually difficult because it's tough to compare yourself. That's the other thing. It's a mental thing, right? Because you're like, I mean, if for you, when he, like, reached out to you and said, like, oh, why are you doing that, or are you doing that? It doesn't make you feel great, right? Because you're all of a sudden doubting yourself immediately. You're like, wait, why do I use FTP why is that
still?
A bad thing? Yeah. Is that bad? Like, but it isn't. Like, most of the time, it's just because you're doing things differently. There's a million things to do it. There's a million ways to complete the same task, and we'll get into how that complicates pricing a little bit later. But, like, it's insane how widespread the technology is now. I think it is starting to narrow down a little bit, and I'll explain that a little bit. So it used to be that you had to build all these technologies to give web technologies more features, like anything that had, reactive components, anything that had asyncs, awaits, anything that had some advanced JavaScript functionality. Let's just say that had to be built through a third-party plugin or a third-party framework, and that kind of gave it more functionality. Nowadays, with ES6 and the next ES that's coming out, and the more features that are coming out to basic JavaScript, a lot of this stuff is being solved with just standard JavaScript. No frameworks, no nothing, right? So stuff like jQuery, in my opinion, isn't really needed anymore. Like, everything that jQuery did that made it simple for you to go and manipulate data, manipulate UI elements, and do basic functions, all, I would say, not one-to-one parity, but almost one-to-one parity has been built into JavaScript in a better, more efficient way. So there really is no reason to just, take jQuery and use it in your project right now if you don't know it. Now, there is something to be said about familiarity. Like if you're more familiar with jQuery than you are with JavaScript and you just need to get a project done and it's one of those things, power to you. Use jQuery all the time. That's fine. Depending on what your use case is, if performance that matters. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it too much, but like even that is complicated, right? Like even the little thing that I just said, like jQuery or not jQuery, to some people out there, that might be a really confusing thought.
When
like,
we were
jQuery?
learning JavaScript, like when we were learning JavaScript, the very first thing I remember seeing, like the whole like I don't really use jQuery much, but it was sort of instead of you doing document.getElement by ID and then you enter the ID, it was the little $sign with the brackets and that. And I remember seeing that all the time, and oftentimes you would look up, like I would look up how to do X thing in JavaScript. And it would come up with a jQuery solution because it's so common. And then I would type it in and this is when we were, very, very fresh. And I would be looking at it being like, first of all, why the hell does this look different? Second of all, why isn't this working? And I had no idea that there's this whole thing called jQuery, right? And what I'm finding is too, and like we're going to probably talk about this a bunch, is that in the web development world, the way that you learn is how you got taught. So for example, if you're self-taught and you fell down the hole of jQuery, you're going to be super familiar with jQuery. You're going to learn it and all the rest of it. But there was no guide or something that specifically, or at least not like one that's very obvious. There's no like specific thing that says you should use jQuery and this is why and like blah, 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 blah. Like when you go to the jQuery website, or at least when I went there back in the day, I didn't really understand what was going on. And what I'm finding is a lot of people are getting into this industry by following how they're taught, which makes sense, of course. But what's happening is they'll go to a boot camp, and that boot camp will use jQuery. So now they're stuck with not like literally stuck, but now they're using jQuery for literally however long their project is, right? Or however long their immediate like career is, right? Maybe they'll switch in the future, but for the most part, they're using jQuery for a bit. There's also like the people that will follow like a specific YouTuber. So like if we and Mike decide to make a YouTube video on making a basic site, more than likely we'll use vanilla. But maybe that's not how we would do it. Let's just say we chose jQuery. So somebody who Googles how do I make a site, finds us first, and then clicks on it, now they think that they use jQuery. So now they learn how to install jQuery and they're just doing it. And that's how you get into those little rabbit holes where someone else is like, why the hell? Why are you using jQuery? Like, oh, you're using jQuery for this? Why? And then to the person, it's like, well, this is how I make a website. What do you mean? And this is exceptionally true, and also a divide in the industry with really popular things like Vue, like
React.
Like what?
React.
Like React. That's what. Thank you. Like WordPress. Right? A lot of people are just like, I code for WordPress. And yeah, they code in PHP and whatever. But realistically, they're coding in PHP and they've mastered coding PHP in a way that works best with WordPress. So everything they're doing is tuned to WordPress. And it's important to note that all these people can switch. But like, I know that like on our Discord server, we've had several conversations with people where they're like fully into WordPress. Right? And then there'll be some people that are dead against it. Like, oh, do custom every time. Some people are like, no, do quick. Mike and I are now kind of like a hybrid where we'll use WordPress when WordPress is due. We'll use a pre-made thing when a pre-made thing is due. We'll do a custom thing when a custom thing is due. But at the end of the day, we're trying to just like provide a solution. But this is how you fall down those rabbit holes.
Absolutely. And like, this is why this topic is just so strong, right? Like it's it's a ranty topic, like I said, and there's a good reason for that. One piece of advice I have on this thing is learn the base. And we've told this advice many times, but I just want to reiterate it. Learn JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Try to figure out those three things really well when you're first learning web development. Because when you know those three things, all the other stuff will fall in line. All the other stuff will be like, will act as a tool instead of this rabbit hole, right? So if you know JavaScript and you need to make a really good reactive UI that changes when you have a different set of data, you'll know what to look for when you Google. You'll know what you need. And you'll be like, oh, Vue.js, it works because Vue.js works because, it goes through, does the document.get elements, updates the UI for me. Like, I don't have to do that manually. And you're using it as a tool instead of using it as a crutch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it's more so like a good example, and maybe this is unclear, but it is an example nonetheless, is if you take it out of the web development world and you put it to a word embedded. So like embedded programming is programming on a small chip. So like a chip that would be in your car that like controls the alarm. Now I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, and God knows how they make car alarms now, but this is how we were taught. And what it is like most people will choose a chip. So we were using AVR chips, and AVR has a specific way to program. They have their own little IDE, and you can code with AVR sort of shortcuts. So you can just say things like turn pin 1 on with an easy to use command, right? And then we were being taught that for like a while, and then it was like, okay, but please note that you're not actually programming, you're using an AVR, effectively a library, in which it's calling that turn on function. And then the last class we had, the most advanced one, taught us how to make our own. And then we had our own set of these files that was like, turning on a pin is common. So we'll make a driver, basically. We'll make a file that's turn pin on whatever, and this file this function, all it will do is it will always like turn a pin on based on the number you feed it. And then when you code an actual project, you always use that driver file that has way more in it than the pin file. But now we understood, there's a layer here. Because if you look online for solutions, like if you're having trouble with your AVR programming, you're going to see some weird stuff like people addressing registers and all the rest of it, and you're unsure. And this can go the same way with Vue as well, where if you don't understand that all these files are using to build it and it's like compiling down to JS and this and that, you're not going to know what the hell's going on. You're just going to think like, well, Vue's not working, right? It's just like how like I don't really know how iOS works, but I use iOS. But if iOS like were to break suddenly, I'd be like, okay. Like I'm a consumer in that way. But a developer would like be like, oh, that's because of like not an app dev. Like a system level dev would be like, oh, that's because we forgot to change this whatever in the system. But an app dev who builds on top of iOS wouldn't have no idea. They'd be like, I don't know. I'm telling it to call up the camera and the camera's not working. I don't know. Right? So there's that leveling effect. And by you having the vanilla, you have a better understanding, or at least a better like you're not gonna be able to fix Vue.js probably by yourself, but like you're gonna be if there's a problem, but you're gonna have a better view of like what is actually happening. It's sort of like how I can probably like I can replace a battery on a car, but I don't know where the hell those wires go. Like okay, like replace these two terminals. Okay, yay, that's it. For me, I can boost a car, but I can't go in there and be like, oh, it's not starting because of this pump or whatever. So,
yeah, exactly. So it's like, it is important to know the core, and that will help you understand the ever-changing technologies, but it won't help you, it won't stop them from changing. That's the other thing. Like it's always going to be changing. So you just got to kind of live with it. It's one of the things that, again, maybe wrong is the wrong word for this, but it is one of those things you have to adapt to. Next here, we have client relations. This is a pretty big one. So depending on what kind of job you're in, if you're a contractor, if you have your own business, or if you're a working in an agency or something like that, working for a startup, it's going to be a completely different set of client relations that you're going to have to do, but they're all very similar. And it can become very overwhelming sometimes because clients are so different across board. Obviously, this does not only apply to the web development industry, but because web development is so, I don't know, it's not standardized, and I'll get into that a little bit later. It's not like a tangible product. Like you're not giving them a phone. It's really difficult for them to compare quality with you and someone else because they don't know what's going on in the background. They don't know how you put the website up. They don't know how you host it. They don't know how you create the stylings. They don't know. So their expectations of you can be vastly different than what you need their expectations to be. And in a way, it's always that battle of like trying to, again, work with the client and, build a partnership together so that you're both understanding each other, and their battle with you trying to get the product that they think is possible out there or they think they need. And it's up to you as the web developer, as the owner of your business, as the contractor, to steer them in the direction that has to be done that makes their product better. And that's a difficult thing to explain and an even more difficult thing to do in real life. Matt and I are getting better at it, I would say, but it's definitely one of the hiccups and one of the things that we need to get even better at, because we have a lot of times, like a lot of the times before we start the podcast, our first, half an hour of a conversation is talking about client relations. So Matt will debrief me on how all of his projects are going, and 99% of that talk is about him actually, like, not feuding with the clients, but him going through the misunderstandings, going through the contract work, going through the communications that they've had. That's most of our conversations. The technology aspect of it, like, we barely talk about that. Like, I barely ask Matt, how did you do that? No, we don't talk about that. It's mostly the client relation side of it.
It's probably like it's probably like almost like a hidden cost, I suppose you could say, of web development, especially if you're doing client work, because you're just getting like a big sort of smorgasbord of different people from the industry. So what I mean by that is some people who are, who run massive companies, who have multiple projects going on or are highly busy, in which your project that you're working on for them is a small part of their life. They usually don't care. And they'll give you the keys to it. You run it. You do whatever it is. They don't want to know the design. They don't want to be involved. They don't whatever. Now, there's some people that are obviously rich and whatever that have these big companies that are hands-on. But we've found that the hands-on typically goes down to people that are, either just starting up, or this is a big piece of their business for whatever reason, like, oh, we're going online for the first time, big or small business. And so if the project is a big part of their life, big part of their professional life, whatever it is, if it's big to them, right, then even if it's a small project from your perspective, from a technical perspective, they're going to be on you. Like, hey, we should move this title. Hey, we should do this. Hey, what about these deadlines? Hey, I'd like to see every single design. Hey, I'd like to see all this milestones. Hey, I'd like to do this. Hey, I'd like to do that. And that's where the arguments, not the arguments, but like the, it's like a feud. The first thing that comes to mind is like, it's like a feud over money, but it isn't really. I guess what it is it's like, it's the professional calling, it's the professional and the non-professional having a discussion. And so I always bring it back to cars, but cars is like sort of the most basic thing that like most of us are aware of, going to the shop and whatever, even if you don't have a car. And if you think about it, it's sort of like you show up and you say, hey, this car is broken. And then the person goes, okay, the alternator is broken. Well, you're not going to be like, well, can we just not have an alternator? Right? Whereas with tech, they're just sort of like, oh, well, can we just not have security? It's like, well, no. Right? Like there's like a little feud point. I've had moments where I'll warn clients, like I've warned clients in the past, and I'll say, hey, by us doing this is going to increase your ticket load. If you're a person maintaining this is going to increase your ticket load. And they say, well, how do you know? It's like, we know, like we've seen it. The more you do X, the more you get tickets. So I'm just going to warn you that this is the thing. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, it's fine, I don't care. Like, whatever. So they kind of like, yeah, it to death. You go and you do it because they've asked for it. And then when it hits thing, they're just immediately like, whoa, we have to make this procedure easier. I'm getting way too many tickets. And they expect that for free. Now, if there's no service agreement in place or whatever, then you're like, sorry, man, like I can't help you. I can't I'm going to have to charge you per hour, or this is like another project for me. And a lot of times people don't realize that, like people realize, like it's very strange. So it's like some people don't realize you're on multiple projects if you're running sort of like a web agency, but some people do realize you're on other projects, but then call you all the time and just sort of like, oh, like, just, don't worry, like, or like they won't be demanding in the moment, but they don't realize that the call is derailing. And obviously you have to have calls with clients, of course. But if this person is calling every single day, multiple times a day, it kind of comes down to a point where it's like, man, I'm trying to work on hat or whatever. And I don't know, Jim's making this up. Jim calls me 4 times a day to ask questions about his speaker company. So now I have to keep looking up and like thinking about speakers, and it's derailing my hat experience. It's the same thing as the whole phone fiasco, like I said, having 2 separate phones. If I'm doing something on Canva, for example, for Hat to like make a nice picture for social media or something, and then all of a sudden like a distressing or interesting or whatever personal message comes in, it derails me immediately, right? So it's the derailings that are problematic, and that's another major point of contention that can lead to contention in a variety of ways. Support is a big one. People just being like, well, you know, the web's 24/7, you built this, you have to fix it. Being like, well, I mean, your car is technically supposed to be available 24/7, isn't it? And your car isn't, like, if the car breaks down today, you know, considering that you're a reasonable person, you're not expecting the mechanic to be ready today. And people just are like, yeah, but this is supposed to be up 24/7, so like I need it 24/7. Right? They're like tech is still at this point where it's not being considered
tangible.
It's not being considered tangible. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Like a digital good still feels like it's less value. And so to them it's just sort of like, well, I need people to be able to order their loaves of bread or something. Like if they're a bakery, I need people to be able to over their loaves of bread 24/7. And if it's, you know, whatever holiday, Christmas Day, New Year's, or whatever, like St. Patty's Day, if you celebrate that, whatever, you know, if it's whatever day it is, you have to be available 24/7. And it's sort of like, oh, okay, well then you have to pay me for that. And then immediately it's like, no. You told me this would be up. And then my argument always is, see, here's where the feud comes in. My argument always is Google Cloud goes down. You know, there's problems with YouTube sometimes. Twitter goes down. And they always say so. And I'm like, you're talking to a 2 or 3 man team, because not all of us are on every project. Like, realistically, like, not possible. You know, if you do want that, I can give you the files and, you know, thanks for being a customer. But, like, you're not going to get perfect, you know, perfect all the time support from, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen. And to some people, they just think like, well, no, like I've been told, like, I don't care if Microsoft goes down, this can't. It's like, well, I have to rent these servers, you know, from somebody, whether they be Microsoft or some other web host. And what if they go down? Like, I can't do anything about that. It's like, yeah, well, we'll do it. And some clients are like that, right? There are those toxic clients that, and luckily we've pretty much gotten away from all them. But like, you know, they'll be like, well, this has to be up 24/7. Even these big companies are 99.99 or whatever percent uptime or whatever they're advertising. And if you look at it, like there's tickets all the time and incidents all the time on Microsoft 365, the business thing. If you can go in and like see the incidents, there's incidents all the time. Like stuff is going to break. And for whatever reason, these digital things just seem to not be, like Mike said, tangible yet. And it makes everybody freak right out immediately. And then it makes us freak right out. And then it becomes this whole thing where it's like, well, now I'm working, you know, off the clock, not getting paid to fix this thing. Like Mike and I the other day, and like, we know this person, so it's like, it's fine. But like Mike and I the other day fixed a couple of websites that literally we haven't touched in like 6 years. Or that might be wrong, maybe 5 years or something. But it's just sort of like, you know, that realistically, that's not our problem. Like we did it, like whatever, like we're reasonable. But like, that's really not our problem.
Mm-hmm. Not for free.
That's exactly it too. It's sort of like the thing where it's like you buy an Xbox and you have the Xbox for 5 years, and on year 5 it breaks. I mean, Microsoft might send it away for repair, but for a price. Or you had to buy an extended warranty of some sort, assuming they had a 5-year warranty of some sort. Or you have to just buy another one, right? Like, but no one's being like, well, this thing's supposed to be up 24/7 and it's supposed to be available to me at all times. But because it's a physical thing, a physical, tangible thing that you can pick up and move around, people seem to be more accepting of it. But with a digital thing, they're like, oh, I can't log into this one thing. That's it. It's over. Like, the whole world's over. I need your help right now. Like, you don't know what, like, we've been told by people, you don't know what you're doing. I thought you were professionals. And immediately I'm just sort of like, okay, there's come a point where I'm just sort of like, okay, or I'll go quiet on a call. Like, I'm just sort of like, okay, I'm just like kind of taking some abuse here, so I'm just going to stop talking. And then they'll be like, hello? And be like, yeah. Be like, well, are you still there? Well, would you like me to fix the problem, or shall we talk about how incompetent I am? Like, you know what I mean? And obviously more professional than that. I'm just sort of talking like sort of laymanly. I don't know if that's a word, but on the podcast here. But like, that does happen. Like, there's people, because you got to remember one thing. If people call you for support, they're pissed off usually. They're already pissed off. And a lot of people are reasonable. Like, our clients that we have, to their credit, are reasonable. But we've had some clients who are no longer clients be, like, totally unreasonable. Like, 100% uptime. Not possible. Well, this other guy told me he could. All right, well, go talk to him then. Like, Mike's had a call one time. A guy wanted a restaurant app, a full ordering restaurant app for, I think it was $110 or $250 or something like that, Canadian. And it was just like, no, we can't do that. And he's like, well, my cousin said. It's like, well, then go talk to your cousin. Why are you calling me? Like, obviously, again, more professional on the phone than that. But that's the thing that's going through your head. Like, why the hell are you calling me? If I'm no good, get out of here.
Yeah. And I think like that the solution is exactly what you're saying to this. And it is a trial and error thing. So you will like struggle with it at first, but it is finding the right clients. And finding clients that are willing to work with you, are willing to be a partner with you, and you a partner with them to make a better product, rather than the clients that are berating you, that want every little penny out of your pocket, that want everything that they possibly can for the money that you're offering, for the low cost, whatever. Like, we don't want those clients. Like, we just don't want those clients. We're not in the business of working with people that are going to berate us. It's just not going to happen. I don't care what the project is. It doesn't matter. So the trick is to know that right off the bat. And usually you can figure it out during the negotiation process. Like when you're negotiating and you give a fair price for the work, and they come back and they're like, well, how about like $150 instead of your $2,500 that you're offering for this very reasonable, like, restaurant website, to go back to that example. That is an immediate, like, in my head, that is too much of a price disparity to even continue the communication, or to think about having some sort of middle ground. It's not a possibility right off the bat, like immediately. And I'm more than willing to be like, hey, that sounds great. Like, we're not ready to do anything at that low cost. If you have a cousin that can do it for you, hats off to the cousin. You can go with him. If you need any other help, you can always call us, stuff like that. And with 100% uptime, a lot of the times, like, I mean, it's not possible. I say it right off the bat. If we want to get as close to possible, I have no problem hiring a person. They can be on your account. It'll be about $60,000 a year for the person's salary. We can get a dedicated server. That's going to be another about $1,000, $2,000 a month on to get the dedicated server so that it has more uptime. We can have a backup dedicated server, another $1,000, so that we can hot swap to it, and then about $100,000, to get it all working, to make sure that we have redundancy and stuff like that with DNS. So yeah, if you're willing to do the 99.9% uptime agreement for the amount of money, there's no problem. And that, like, obviously it's facetious. Obviously it's being kind of a dick, a little bit of a dick when you say stuff like that, but it is kind of a reality too. Like, the pricing that I'm saying is a little bit off from what I would actually say, or what I would actually quote, but it is like fairly close. If they want something to be up 99.9% of the time, if they want to beat Google or Microsoft for a service, I'm willing to offer that. But again, it's going to be at a price point where I am intentionally giving that price point for them to say no. Let's just say that. Like, I'm intentionally showing them how much it's going to cost because it's an unrealistic goal. Like, your budget does not fit here. If it does, all right, let's do it. Let's hire that $60,000 employee that's going to be around. Let's hire 2 people so that they can flip shifts, so that you literally have 24/7 support. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's totally doable to a certain degree, but it's not cost effective. Like, you can't, like, no one can guarantee that at like $150. It's just not possible.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing too, is like, I don't know whether it's some of it's definitely lack of like understanding of what it takes. But I have a funny feeling that like a lot of people are just sort of, I don't know how to word this, but it's sort of like a lot of tech, and like talking to other technical professionals, like a lot of technical people kind of feel abused, right? Because they're like constantly getting phone calls from angry people, or they're being like, crapped on by their boss, or whatever it is. And it's just sort of like, this tech needs to work perfectly 24/7. You're one person, go. And because Mike and I run our own thing, we just straight up, like, I'm very coy, like, I think that's the word to use, but Using a lot of weird words today, but I'm very like straight up with clients. Like I just tell them, like there's been times where people will request 10 different things on like, I don't know, 10 of their projects. And I do like one at a time, and they're like, yo, like, these are different projects. Why aren't they all done at once? And it's like, you are talking to a 1 to 3 man operation, depending on how many people we've assigned here. And I'm sorry, but like you are one client of X many, and I am providing this service, like whatever. If it needs to be done faster, then we can put a rush on it, but it will cost more. If we need to do something special for it, it will cost more, like Mike's saying. And then it's just like, well, I don't want to pay more. It's like, okay, well, if you want more service, you have to pay more. Or you can go to a larger agency and, maybe they have a package deal because they always have a support team for all their websites or something. But you aren't going to get the one-on-one. Like, people call me for help with their site and I walk them through menus and stuff. But like if you call some big agency, it'll be a call center, or it won't be as smooth, or they won't help you as much, or they will have.
It's going to cost way more.
It's going to cost. It's going to cost. Like just look at the bureaucracy. You're adding a bureaucratic level 1 support, 2 support, 3 support, whatever. You're adding like who can call, who has VIP support. Like there's a lot of employees. There's a lot of bureaucracy. The systems are engineered. You have to have training for those systems. You have to have documentation for those systems. You have to teach those people at their various levels. You have to make sure that they're always there. You have to manage shifts. You got to manage contracts. You got like, come on. There just does come a point when it's like, and to be honest, we do come across a lot of abandoned websites. So, it is a two-way street, to be fair, in which there are a lot of bad web guys out there. But there's also a lot of good web guys that are doing perfectly fine. And there's also a lot of good web guys that had or having a bad experience, getting beat down, and then they become bad web guys. They just don't care. And so I think the key really is, this is, and it's not a tangent, it's highly related to client relations, but it also comes into tech stuff too. But it kind of comes to a point where you just have to be flexible, but you have to have the direction, if that makes sense. It's like, you have to choose a direction and go in it if you're going to like offer good support and do this and do that. Like whatever your core values as a company are, you go in that direction and you're flexible, right? Like maybe some guy's like a real jerk and you're like, you know what, like our core value is to help everybody, but we're done with this guy. Like I'm getting like, I can't deal with this guy. Like, sorry, we're going to have to drop your account. However it works in your country to drop accounts or whatever, right? Because it's different per country, but it's just sort of like, sorry, man, I can't help with this project anymore. Thanks for the opportunity, whatever. But like, you have to choose where to be flexible and where to be rigid, in which you're just like, no, like, I am not going to do this because this is going to cause a major problem. Like, how many times, and I've mentioned this several times, how many times, and this is a lighthearted one, have we told clients I'm not putting music on your site? Short of it being a podcast player, a video player, a music player, something like that. Oh, can we just have some nice background music? No. Sound effects? No. Like, short of it being one of those things, or a highly themed website where it's supposed to have media playing, and it's a high, like, if you're trying to make a whole website in the whole Terminator theme or something, and it needs the Terminator noises, totally reasonable. But a regular website where you sell, like, hats, and you want, like, bloop, 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 like when you're hovering over stuff, no, sorry. And, like, that's, like, something where I'm being rigid in saying, I'm not willing to make that UX, whatever. But I'm being flexible enough to say, if the person is persistent, I will put it in writing that I really do not recommend it, but I will do it. But Mike and myself being rigid with that and being so hard it's hard for clients to get us to put that in, makes it so that we've actually never had to do it. And no one's mad. Like, I give evidence. Sorry, this is not standard. This is annoying. On phones, it's terrible. We don't want to have to add media controls. We don't want to have to add mute controls. It's awkward. It's going to cause weird problems. It's going to cost you more. We have to go find the music somewhere. I don't recommend it. Mm-hmm. Right? And then yep. They'll be like, Jesus, yeah, okay. That's us being rigid professionally. That's the key. You have to take all this stuff that we're saying, because we're saying it very, very, like, in the moment where we're just saying, like, man, that customer is a bad customer. You don't call somebody and say, you're a bad customer, goodbye. You just say something like, hey, man, like, we're moving in a different direction. Apologies for the thing, whatever. We'll give you this much support for this much time, and we'd like to exit this project. Thank you very much for your opportunity, and blah, 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 blah. This is what you'll get. This is how we'll exit. We recommend these 3 people. Goodbye. And that's the more professional way to handle it.
Exactly. Professional, rigid. I like everything you said there. With that, I'm probably going to move on here because
oh yeah,
the rants in this episode have been really, really epic.
We've been on the phone, Mike. We've been on the phone all day.
I know. All day. It's been a weird day. It's been a really weird day. It's been a really weird day for me. It's been and like you said, it's been a weird like couple weeks even. So that's why this episode kind of fits in here. Error catching. That's the next one. JavaScript and web development are a little bit different than most other languages. So if you're coming from C#, Java background, this is going to be the thing that kind of throws you a little bit. With C# and Java, when you write code and then compile it, before you run it, you have to compile it. And that while you compile, it'll check your code and make sure it can run. That's the key. It'll check to make sure if it can run. If it can't run, it'll give you an error. Now, whether that error is helpful, whether one language has better errors than another language, whatever, that's fine. But it'll give you an error. JavaScript, on the other hand, is a runtime language, which means you can write it and you can write an error in that code that will break the site. You can write an error in that code that will, delete a customer account and crash the server, whatever. And it will run. It will not tell you. You can put it in production. It will not tell you that you have made an error. There are error catching tools, and a lot of them, and they're all different, and they're all tough to set up. There are tools like ESLinters
hard to use, and they're terrible.
Yeah,
they don't work fully, and
and they're all over the place. They're out there, and they're difficult. But from the get-go, what you get out of the box with JavaScript is nothing. And if you have an error, you'll just have a white screen. Sometimes it'll run perfectly, and the error will only occur when you click on a specific link after a specific set of times that you've clicked on the link. Try catching that error. Like, after you click this link 100 times, it will crash it. That can happen with JavaScript.
We've had weird things like that, yeah.
100%. Try to catch that error before you put it in production. Not possible.
I caught a weird error the other day where, and this isn't JavaScript, but this is very similar. So it was with a server. I was coding an htaccess, and I just needed to temporarily throw a file somewhere, and I needed to just make it so that the referral link was a specific link. Someone presses the download link, and I just had a temporary file store just so the client can see that, yes, it's working. Because I didn't want to explain to them that I had a temp one. And, I'm not going to get into it. So, with the client. So what I did was I, did it, and I did it on, Chrome. I did it on a couple others, and it was a PDF, opens the PDF, no problem, saves it, no problem. All of a sudden, get to, Edge or one of the browsers, and all of a sudden I can't save it. And it's because it's looking at itself as the referral, and it's saying, oh, the referral wasn't the download button, therefore I'm not allowing it. Even though it's myself, I'm not allowing it. But the other stuff, the other browsers were getting the referral, downloading it in a temp file, I would presume, and then you pressed save and it just works. So that's one of those weird things, right? Where it's like, what the hell? But luckily I just added another referral. But in production, if that was I don't know, some sort of configuration file that you desperately needed, or some sort of digital product you sold the customer and you were using that referral way, which you probably shouldn't use, but if you were, if JavaScript was controlling it for some reason, that's very easy to accidentally put in there. And then it's just everyone's like, hey, I bought your wallpaper, my desktop wallpaper, but it just didn't download. What's going on here? And it's oh, here we go.
Yep, exactly. So, and it can happen a million different ways. You can have an infinite loop. That happens all the time. You click a button and you're referencing an element that's not there, and then you're incrementing over a set of elements that aren't there or are just theoretical or whatever, and all of a sudden you get stuck in an infinite loop. You crash the person's browser and computer. You can do that, and JavaScript will not tell you that you have an infinite loop in there when you put it in production. Again, yes, there are ESLinters. I get it that can catch some of these things, but a lot of the time they do mess up. A lot of the time, they make stuff more convoluted than it needs to be. ESLint is all over the place. You have to find the right linting thing for you that will not drive you insane and stuff like that. So that's the complication with error catching and web development. Next thing here, barely any standards. Again, this kind of goes to the first point, the ever-changing technologies. Where do you start? When you're writing a website, who's monitoring, who's checking to make sure that you've written it correctly? There's no one there. There's no entity out there that's going around checking websites. theoretically, no, but like it's true.
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
You're right.
There's no, yeah, like if you create a car, go back to the car analogy. When you create a car, something has to happen. A safety check has to happen for you to be able to put that car into production. Correct?
Well, yeah, like in Canada, there's a bunch of regulations on how the car is built and all the rest of it, right? All these laws and all the rest of it, and then furthermore, there's sort of a live check where it's like when you go to buy a car, depending on its age and whatever. I'm not versed in it, but there is a safety check at which they check the seat belts and warning lights and all the rest of it. And so now they're checking the things they're checking. With a standard list of things to check, they're checking a car that was built to standard to make sure that it is still adhering to the standards. So it's like a whole list of stuff to make sure, GM can't be like, you know what, I got this. I'm going to make our lights out of paper mache. That's ridiculous.
Can't do that. But with web development, if you want to make paper mache web pages, fucking go ahead, do it.
Yeah, just something where it's super easy to crash. That's what I mean by paper mache. Just super weak.
Yeah.
Just
absolutely.
Put my hand through this friggin' website. Whoops.
You want to store passwords in plain text? You want to have a website that just blasts all the passwords out of the user that's inputted?
I mean, I did publish my password and login instructions publicly on GitHub when I was learning Typo 3. So
there we go. I mean, I just signed up to one of my community websites. It was a website for the city that I'm in, Burlington, some sort of recreation website. I signed up for it. They sent me my password and my email.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Plain text, obviously, because they sent me my password.
Or it's stored in such a way that it's and you know what, in MD5 or something that can be easily decrypted. You know what I mean?
Sure, whatever.
So they're not storing it in plain text, but it's if someone gets it, they can just run it through a decryptor. The thing that sucks too with that is maybe there's, I'm not a security expert, so maybe there's more to that specific case, Mike, but I mean, more or less, you shouldn't be sending your passwords in plain text, but we as web developers will often find ourselves using something specific. So if we're using a specific plugin because it's of complexity that we're unaware of, and then it decides to store some stuff in plain text, you're screwed. It's just well, I guess that's in plain text now. What am I gonna do? There's no security body looking at me.
No, there isn't. You can have people's credit cards, people's social insurance numbers. It doesn't. You can just put a website out there. No one's going to stop you. That just literally collects people's information. It's just a front page. Is literally just a form, and it's just enter all your information. No one's stopping you. No one's asking why. No one's checking, and you can do it in whatever technology you want on the web.
And maybe a law would catch you, down the line.
Maybe.
But from a technical perspective, there's no here you go, web development checking agency. Please check this out before I publish it. That's what we're getting at. There's no I think it's called CSA, Canadian Standards or whatever it is, Canadian Standards Association, something like that. Don't quote me, but there's nothing like that for web developers where it's not hey, why the hell is this stored in plain text? Because that plugin that you use that's storing something in plain text that shouldn't would be caught before you use it, right?
Yep.
So.
And there's no one guide either. When you're going into web development, if you look up how to learn web development, you're not going to find the one guide that everyone uses to start up, and then they differentiate after that. There is no one course. There is no one guide. There is no one way to learn. There's a million different ways to learn. There's a million different technologies. There's a million different steps to take. It's extremely subjective, and it sometimes is wrong. A lot of the times people are teaching you, if they're starting you off in the middle of a framework, I'm sorry, but that's just wrong. In maybe it's my opinion, yes. And again, that's part of the problem. The fact that I can say it's in my opinion and that's official enough for it to be a guide or whatever, or a course.
You know what it is? It's like when someone is trying to get something done quick. If you go to a boot camp and they teach you React right out of the gate from scratch, it's because the goal is to get a job quick in React.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. And I mean, again, that it can work. You can absolutely go through a boot camp, learn just React without learning JavaScript, HTML, CSS in detail, and get a job in React and have a decently successful career. But as soon as you get to that point where there's a complicated problem with your website or with the code base, and you have to go in and rewrite it, or you have to switch technologies. Like, God forbid, React just goes away or something. Like, what happens when, someone, Vue.js all of a sudden takes over and becomes the de facto framework, and everyone's using Vue.js, no one cares about React. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to switch? How are you going to adapt? So it's just, it's one of those things where you have to think about your future a little bit, and you have to invest your time in the right places from the beginning. And if you invest your time in the right place from the beginning, and you learn JavaScript, HTML, and CSS enough to understand it, and then go into the frameworks, it's going to pay off exponentially for you in the future. That's just facts. Like, we've done that. I've used my JavaScript skills many times to solve all the different framework problems. I have no problem saying that I can learn any of the different frameworks because I know JavaScript well enough. Like, I don't care what technology you throw at me. It's not scary. Like, it's not daunting because I understand what it's built on. I understand the programming behind it. And that's what I recommend.
You know what the equivalent is in real life is they always say that, like, people that are younger know tech because they're not afraid of it because they grew up with it. So it's like older folks who, like, depending on age, didn't grow up with smartphones and stuff. And so when they see, like, oh, I need to take a picture. How do I take a picture? And they don't know what to click to take a picture. And they actually literally ask for help from someone else. Whereas if I go and pick up an iPhone, and I'm not super familiar with iPhone, to be fair, and I don't know how to do that, I'm either going to Google it, which is the worst case, or I'm literally just going to play with the device. Like, I'm comfortable with the tech, and I'm not afraid of it. The same thing could be said about learning the vanilla stuff, where it's like you learn the vanilla stuff. Now you're not afraid of this other stuff, right? You're not scared of, like, you're not scared of it being like, man, like, I don't know any JS, and this thing's saying that, like, this variable is wrong. Like, I just copied and pasted all this code from Stack Overflow. Like, what do I do now? If you get into one of those complex issues that Mike and I had talked about later. And then you have a real serious problem, because you're going to be looking at yourself you're going to, like, find yourself staring, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, at, like, a compile window or something, and you're going to have no idea. Whereas, like, I know servers pretty well, and I'm not afraid. I don't care. I'll just forget. Like, I always say, like, sysadmin's like wrestling with the damn thing. Like, there's been times where I, like, just this week, there was a whole bunch of not security, but like a whole bunch of websites. I don't know why I kept trying to say security websites. A whole bunch of websites hosted on this one particular server, and I'm being ambiguous just because I don't want to give away our infrastructure. But basically, like, I had to change the PHP version to test something on one test site, and there was like 10 of them on there, and it was like, man, we could test this and this, and I was like, you know what? And I just, like, went on my phone, went into it, changed the PHP, was like, there you go, bud. And it's like, are any of the other websites tested? No, they'll just call if they have problems. And that's, like, effectively me wrestling, because, like, there's like a 99% chance out of my experience that, like, it won't break it, and we could do all these crazy security checks, but at the end of the day, we're not, like, I'm making the call. We're not processing any credit cards. We're not even processing any emails on this particular server. It's all just, like, UI stuff. So if, like, some UI stuff breaks, who cares? Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just go in and fix it. And so you make that call, and you're wrestling it. You're like, I could, do this whole formal check, or I could just be like, you know what? There's no security at risk here. I'm just changing this damn PHP version. I don't care. And then that's it. So, like, but, like, I'm not afraid to jump in there and wrestle it. But then there's areas where you are afraid. Like, you don't want to be...
You should be afraid.
You should be afraid of screwing with something in production with hundreds of people using it every single day, right? You should be afraid of that. You should be afraid of, like, little things like that. But the point is, you're supposed to know where to be afraid. That's a key thing. Yep. Where I'm in a dev environment, it's just sort of like, you know what? This might break everything, so I'm going to take a backup just so I can restore the dev environment, and if it breaks everything, screw it. If it doesn't, well, woohoo! And then you just fire it off, and, oh, it broke everything, let's just restore because it's faster, right? You're doing it without fear. But then when you go to deploy, people often get that, like, anxiety. But think about how much higher that anxiety would be if you were anxious, first of all the time, in dev and production, and if you were still kind of, I mean, and newbies will experience this, and like, we're new at some tech types, where it would be like, man, I don't know what this database is going to do. Like, what is going to happen here, right? And you're scared. And, like, that makes sense. And so you need to kind of know the tech well enough to know when or where to be afraid and how afraid. If you're like, man, this might make some people's usernames have a space at the end, that's not the end of the world. Like, it sucks, but that's not the end of the world. You can fix that, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to combine the next 2 points here. So having to deal with different browser technologies and different devices with different screen sizes, all three kind of combined, is difficult to say the least. If you're trying to build a website that needs to be accessed by people of all ages, from any sort of generation, if you're trying to encompass 100% of the audience, like if that's one of your goals, you're going to have a hard time. Like, it's just not, it's not an easy task. You're going to have a bad time. Yeah. Yeah. If you're trying to solve for IE8, good luck.
Yeah. I'm not hoping it.
And then using like with newer web technologies as well, like in at the same time, it's difficult. So on that topic, you should be charging more when you're doing that kind of stuff at this point. But on the other side, you should be pushing back a little bit. You should be trying to, unless it's a very specific, like if it's a government application, for instance, that people need to be able to submit their taxes or something into. Not that all the people are working on that, but if you are working on something like that, I could see there being an argument made that needs to be able to support as many people as possible. But if you're building a website that is going to be accessed for buying hats, like Matt was saying, just a website that buys hats, there's no reason for you to be building it for IE8. Like, you should be supporting Edge and above, because realistically, what's the audience percentage of IE8? And out of that audience percentage, how many people are going to be buying digital hats? Or like hats on a website. Most of the people that are on IE8, in my opinion, are people that will probably go into the store to buy a hat. Like that, those are the kind of logical things you have to make, logical decisions you have to make. And then with the different size screens and different devices, that's another complexion. So if you're an Android developer, it's pretty complicated because you have so many different tablets, so many different phones. But realistically, you are solving for the mobile experience. So it makes it a little bit easier. If you're an iOS developer, even easier. You have a very finite number of devices, very finite number of screen sizes. It's very doable.
And choose your limit too. Choose a limit.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're a web developer, you're solving for ultra high definition, ultra wide, really small, vertical orientation, small devices, large devices, weird devices. Like, there's like an infinite amount of sizes. And then you're also solving for people like me that like to like resize their windows and put them in different spots. And when I see a website that doesn't resize very well, I'm like, oh, what, those bastards. But realistically, I'm kind of janking their website, right? Like, I'm purposely going through and trying to, make their website a little bit more efficient. So that adds complexity. That adds difficulty with UX. Like, if you want a really cool UX design, but you need it to work across all devices, that's a tall order. Like, how are you going to make a really interesting layout work on a phone in horizontal and vertical view, as well as an ultra wide monitor that, spans like 3 monitors at the same time and still look okay? Try that design challenge. Something unique, other than the fact that, like, there's a reason why the web is so similar now, why it's always like a grid style layout, because it's really easy to make responsive. Right? Like, if you have 3 columns, you just line them up vertically or spread them out across. But if you have something that's unique, how are you going to make it work on all the different devices? Like, are you going to just do different designs for each device? Are you going to do, like, what are you going to do? So
it's also ease of use, to be fair, too. Like, it is ease of use as well, because people get used to using content boxes, and content boxes are sort of like a distilled version of what we've always had on things. Like, there's a reason why, stuff goes to 100% or near 100% width on mobile as well, because it fills up that screen because the screen's so small. So there's little things like that, as well as what Mike's saying in horizontal and landscape. We had recently had an issue, and like, it's a pretty simple issue, but like something that people would overlook is like, we had a full screen video playing, and it was, obviously full screen by me setting the VH to 100, so 100% of the viewport height. Did not consider the fact that there was a whole bunch of overlaid stuff on there, and then during bug testing, we found that when you squish it down, the 100% viewport height of an iPhone in landscape is frickin' tiny, and everything all clashed together. So you obviously just put like a minimum pixel height or something. I think that's what I did. Easy enough, but still something to consider.
So on the view height thing, and then this is the complication of the different browsers. If you put a view height, a Chrome browser will expect it to be the height of the actual content, but a Safari browser will actually take the height of the address bar into consideration.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's right.
Two different calculations for the same exact thing. So now you're going to have jank. So now you have to figure out how to handle that. So that's another thing. Like all these different browsers, they're trying to compete with each other. They're trying to be the right one.
Yeah.
And they're doing things differently. Now, it's becoming more cohesive. It's becoming a lot easier. Back in the olden days, which we weren't coding in the olden days, let's be serious. Back in 10 years ago, where we had Internet Explorer, Opera, Firefox, Safari, all running on completely separate engines with completely separate standards, it was a nightmare. I've looked at the posts, I've looked at the reviews of that and stuff like that. I've looked at developers explaining it. My mind boggles. Now it's a little bit easier. Stuff's coming together. Edge is running on Chromium. We essentially have Edge. Well, we essentially have Chromium, Safari, Firefox left. They're coming together a little bit. Like it's becoming easier, but there's still those little things. Like I said, the VH thing still hasn't been solved. Like I looked at the release notes of the new Safari that was just released in the new macOS Big Sur. They didn't even mention it. They don't care.
Wow. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where, make your website look intentional in as many resolutions as you can. Even if it's not exactly the way you wanted, sometimes you just have to make it look intentional, because what happens is customers won't, not to pull the wool over their eyes, but customers, chances are they won't use that specific device. But if they do, it at least looks intentional. So they're not calling you angry being like, hey, this is broken. They're calling you being like, hey man, I'd like this layout on this specific iPad in landscape or in portrait to be a little bit different. And then it's just sort of like a design talk at that point. So basically make sure that there is a design for virtually any screen size, especially within your limit. And what I mean by limit, I mean by Mike and I only support down to an iPhone 5. Anything that's smaller than that, chances are that device is probably gone, or the person that's using it is used to jank, because we're starting to get to a point where we're putting so much on our mobile phones that it's getting impossible to fit everything in on an iPhone 5 screen or below, right? So an iPhone 5, which is a very small screen, I believe it's a 4-inch screen or somewhere around there. It's a very small screen, and therefore we just don't support underneath that. And we don't support IE either by default. And if you want us to, again, like Mike said earlier, you can pay us to do that. But there's we choose our limits. Like we'd say, okay, we're going to do down to an iPhone 5. And I've told customers that. Like I've recently started telling customers when they say hey, can we fix this on smaller screens? I say, yep. Go when I fix it. Go into the responsivity checker, do that, and then I write down the device. So I'll say hey, if I know they're using an iPhone, I'll say, hey, this will work from iPhone 6 and down. This fix will apply at iPhone 6 and down. Sometimes we'll make a video stop playing, or we'll make the image different on a smaller screen. So I'll be like, this image will apply from this to this down. This image will apply from this up. And if they're using Android, same thing. Oh, this will go from a Nexus 6P up, or whatever, right? Because people who are asking about specific breakpoints are tech savvy enough to be like, oh, what's that? If they don't know what a Nexus is, look it up. Oh, it's 6-inch screens. Perfect. Sounds good to me. And they'll just leave it, right? So I've been incorporating that into my responsivity talk with clients, rather than me being like, the viewport was 17 inches wide. I'm not that's ridiculous. So it's just easier to say, usually it's an iPhone, 90% of the time. And I'll just say iPhone 6 and up, iPhone Pad Pro, iPad, man, that'd be a freaking device. iPad Pro, 2017 is where I'm limiting this, or whatever, those type of things. Because then they'll be like, oh, I have an iPad. Yep, that sounds good to me. That's reasonable. We'll change that later, or whatever. That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a few points here as well. I'm just going to kind of rip through these because obviously we're running pretty long. We had a super long weekly pain point. So one of them is, and we've talked about this before, is no standard pricing. So pricing varies wildly, and I do mean wildly. Literally from $250 to $15,000 on the same project. And this is actually seriously not a joke. I've seen people that say, oh, we don't charge anything under $20K for a website. And that's literally what it is. But then you have generally smaller time people, so people that are new or just one person that does web development, and they'll be like, oh, I do WordPress sites and I do them every single one, no matter what it is, for $500. So it's quite literally that different. Some people are $250 versus $15,000. That is actually what you could be quoted. You could find quotes
Yep.
in that range.
We've seen it.
We've literally seen it.
I've legit seen it. Yeah, I've legit seen it. I know a friend that went out and got a bunch of quotes for a website, and it wasn't that disparate. Like, it wasn't 200 to 15,000, but it was. I think the cheapest he had was 1,500, and the most expensive he had was 27,000 or something. Like 7 quotes I think he got, and that was the range, right? On the same website. It was mostly a standard website, mostly standard like information heavy website for like a business, like a regular business. There, it wasn't like one of those websites where they were trying to convert people or anything like that. It was mostly just, hey, this just needs to have our information on there, so when people Google us, they see that we're professional. Like it's a little bit above a business card website, but still. So it's one of those things, and this happens for many reasons. I find, and like you said, a lot of the reasons for the higher pricing is because there's just price points for some companies that they won't go under, no matter what. Like, if a person comes and they say, I want to have like my grandma have a website online, they're going to get the same exact price as the person that actually needs like, a pretty heavy marketing influence, good SEO and stuff like that, because they just don't want to deal with those customers. Their mindset is, I would rather overquote you and lose you as a customer than provide a reasonable quote, have you, and then spend time on building your site. So 15,000 for me is that reasonable quote. If you're willing to go with us, we're going to build you the best, regular, normal site that we can possibly do for your needs. But that's what we're going to get. And from what I've heard, it's pretty successful. Like, that method is pretty successful because some people do value maybe not the eliteness of it, but the professionalism there. Right? Like, okay, you're going to build me this site that someone else can build me for $500, but you're going to do it with the knowledge of, a full team of people, the technology of, 10 years of work. That's value. That's a value proposition. So yes, the disparity is there. Yes, you can probably get a decent site for less money, but if you want one of those like click and you're done solutions, and you have the money and you're willing to spend the budget on something that's probably going to work for you for a long time, sometimes it's worth it to spend that extra money. That's the mindset that I'm trying to approach our projects, not the $15,000. Let me be clear. Like, we're not in that range right now. Like, we're not going to be quoting everyone $15,000, but I am trying to put a price on our value, rather than put a price just on the hours that we spend on the project. And it's not to scam anyone. It's not to do anything, underhanded. It's to literally provide a better product. Because when you quote someone a reasonable price that you're happy with, and they accept it, then you know that partnership is most likely going to work, because you're going to be very motivated to work for them because you're getting the money that you want and that you need to run your business. And they're going to be happy because they're going to be getting a person that's motivated to work on their project.
And that's a really good point, Mike, because if you really think about it, we were talking about customer relations earlier, and customer relations can get rocky because of the price. So like, somebody, like a client, could, let's say, call you every single day with totally reasonable requests. But if that person paid you $250, 10 months ago, and that person's still calling you all the time, the requests or the talks could be totally reasonable, but you might lose your temper with them or get frustrated with them or not want to talk to them because you're not being paid by them. But if this person's paying you, a fair bit per month, or paid you a lot for the project or whatever it is, then it's a more reasonable conversation and you feel as though you've been compensated for your work. Whereas, that's not the case. That's not the case when you're paid a very little amount. And it kind of comes to like it kind of comes to the idea of it being like, don't just offer your services for free. Like, know your value in that. And it is exceptionally difficult to do. It's easy for me to say, it's hard for you to do. If you're brand new and you really want to do work, like I know a lot of people will try to do a bunch of free work, whatever you got to do, I guess, to hustle it out. But if you're a person that's now making 15 grand a month or something like that because of all these maintenance contracts that you have, and someone comes along and wants to offer you $250 for $250 flat for something that needs to be supported for a year, you're going to be like, get the heck out of here. Because your value is higher than that. You probably have a team at this point, and it's like, I don't want to do that. No, sorry, bud. And then that's it. So that type of thing is where, like, that's important to note, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? So that type of thing is, you know, I'll say it like this, is Mike and I aren't perfect at it yet. We still have meetings per quote because we are not perfect at it, and we both need to put our heads together on it. We sometimes get it proofread or checked over by others, and we also need it, like, we are getting better, but we are not perfect at it. And to be totally honest, I don't think anyone is. Some people just some people distill it down to a template and say, I only charge $1,500 per every single website, and that's how they deal with it. But if you're talking, and to be blunt, that's not even perfect, because the distillation down to that wasn't perfect. You know, quoting is not perfect, especially when you have ranges, like I just said, 250 to 15,000. Crazy, right? Just absolutely crazy.
Yep.
Another one, real quick one. We've already touched on this quite a bit, but real quick. Too rapidly moving ahead. So tech moves really, really quick, right? But this is just crazy. Like, we're moving to different frameworks, different ideals, different things, like different ways to learn, different this, different that, different this. It's too crazy. Like, could you imagine learning, like, people always say, I have 10 years experience, right? It's like, okay, well, imagine 5 years ago, say it's, 2015. You take 2015 and you've been doing PHP for 10 years. So now you're a PHP, you're a PHP expert and you're a master at it, and you've been doing it for 10 years. But now no one really uses PHP. Like, people use it, it's in use all the time, but not in the zeitgeist. It's not the thing that's talked about. It's not the newfangled thing. If you bring that up at a conference with like a new developer, they're going to be like, PHP, like, the hell are you talking about? And Mike and I went to an event, a local event, and some guy came up to me, or I think we were at like the coffee bar there or whatever, and I was just like sitting there grabbing a drink, and the guy came up to me and he's like, oh, what are you building? That's sort of like a common question at these dev things, like, what are you building? And I was like, oh, I'm just here to check it out, whatever, we just do client projects for now type of thing, we're not really building anything. And he was like, oh, he's like, I'm building something pretty cool. And I was like, oh, okay, like, what is it type of thing? And he was like, you're gonna hate me for this. And I was like, what? I was like, what is it? Like, what the hell are you building? I thought it was going to be like something offensive or something. He's like, it's offensive in developer terms. He's like, I'm building it in PHP. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what you're building it in. I'm like, you could be building it on freaking ICQ somehow. I don't give a crap. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, most people here are like, not necessarily there, but he's like, most people I talk to are like, PHP, what the hell? But he's like, PHP is so fast. And I was like, yeah, it is. Probably because it's like the vanilla language. Like, it's one of the originals, like, it's one of the vanilla languages. Of course it's really fast. It doesn't have all this crap built on top of it, but like, people are legitimately being like, like PHP isn't cool anymore. It's like that cool factor. Like, it's no longer the thing. Like, once the Xbox Series X comes out, Microsoft stops talking about the Xbox One. Maybe doesn't stop, but it lessens, right? Same with Samsung. It's like, buy this brand new Note, but when the next Note comes out tomorrow, we're done with this Note. Like, it's just immediately like, we don't care about this crap anymore. It's just sort of that like quickly moving mentality. And with web dev, because it takes years to learn stuff, it's crazy. It's just sort of like, oh, just learn VJS, and there it goes. Like, so then there's like this weird culture of like nobody being experienced because everyone wants to go on to the latest thing, and then no one's experienced more than like 2 years with something. It just, and you have all these other problems of like testing on all these devices. It's crazy. Not to stick around with that, but like the next point is, it's difficult sometimes just to Google stuff. So for example, if you didn't know the term continuous integration or CI, I mentioned this before, then it's difficult to find out information on it just by Googling something like the generic way to say it. So like, how to put your website live, because you're going to find like 1,000 methods. People are going to be talking about PHP sites. People are going to be talking about sites that they made in Dreamweaver. People are going to be talking about every dang thing that they've used, and there's going to be guides on all of it, but you don't have the specifics, but you haven't been told the specifics either. So like, by you Googling continuous integration, you could probably learn a whole bunch, but you don't know that term yet. So now you have to like sift through all this crap, hopefully find that term, land on the right thing, hopefully find that term, think that that's what you have to Google, then Google it. And then this is where kind of Googling as a skill comes in. But with web development, it's not as simple as being like what's something that's like really cut and dry. Like, how do I dry something? Like, use a paper towel to, you know what I mean? Like, it's super simple. There's like a bunch of different ways, but it's always like, pick up a cloth-like thing and then use this to pick up the spill, pick up a ShamWow or something like that. But like, it's never like, go to space quickly, and that's how crazy web development can get. It gets to the point where it's like, well, what you need to do is you need to get the Mac, you need to build this thing out, you got to have a VM. Then what you got to do is you got to have cloud stuff. Now get your GitHub. You got your GitHub, get your Facebook. Now you're probably an influencer. It's like, well, hang on a minute. I'm trying to update this user. like hang on a minute here,
That's why, okay, so the big thing with Googling and everyone like having that, all web developer does is Google when they get into it. Knowing how to Google is
a skill.
Very important. It's a skill. And I've had many conversations with some of the people that I've been training and some of the people that part of my team. They're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Like I just Googled and I found the answer and I just solved it. And I'm like, did you solve the problem? Yeah. Then you're doing it right. Like, do you think I just know exactly how to solve every problem and I don't Google? Like, that's ridiculous.
You say you don't, Mike?
That's a ridiculous.
Well, hang on a minute here. Hang on a minute here.
Yeah.
An imposter has entered the chat.
Yeah. I'm literally an imposter. No, I Google all the time. All the freaking time. Yes, there's some things that now I've done so many times that I don't have to Google. True. But even those things, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Google it again just to make sure that I put it the right way the first time. I do that. And that's totally normal. If you know how to solve a problem through Google, you're on the right track. I'm sorry. Like that is just right. So that's why it is difficult to Google, because there are so many different technologies, so many different ways. And sometimes Google will not solve the problem for you. That's the difficult part. And that's where you need to know how to read documentation. So if you're using, again, we've mentioned this before, if you're using a third-party library and, it's not a very highly used library, a lot of the time, if you're running into a weird issue, you're not going to be able to find the problem. So you're going to have to A, use documentation, or B, know how to use the GitHub issues, follow their templates, wait for the response, like go through the process of, communicating with the developer of the thing that you're using to be able to get an answer. That's the difficult part too. And that makes, web development a little bit more complicated as well. So again, knowing how to Google things, Googling is difficult. Those are all things that like put into the complexity of web development and the fact that you shouldn't feel like an imposter if you're Googling every little thing.
Yes, it's very much like mechanics will refer to the manual. They don't know exactly how your air filter fit on this specific Honda. There's 1,000 different types of cars, and God knows how many years that they support and everything else. They don't know exactly what the heck's going on. They have to refer to the manual, or they refer to the parts guy, or they call they what?
Or they Google.
Oh, they said, or they go home.
Google.
Oh, I don't know how to put this air filter on. I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah. I quit.
I quit for air filters. No, but but yeah, everyone looks stuff up all the time, and this whole Googling conversation always brings me back to Elon Musk, actually. So Elon Musk has something, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he had this thing where he said the computer or the smartphone in your pocket is basically an extension of us. We're already what do they call those, cyborgs or whatever? We're already because this thing is a piece of us. And the only thing that's wrong with it is that the bandwidth is slow because you're typing on it with your physical fingers, and it's not attached to your brain. So you have to think out how to type, and then you type it out on it. So there's that whole looking at it, opening the apps and all that slow bandwidth. But if it was just in your eye and you could just see this HUD and you quickly could just send a message, you could, right? And this always comes down to that, where it's people who are against phones, I don't know about you, Mike, but when I was in school, elementary school through high school, we started getting computers in grade 3, if I remember correctly. Grade 2, we got a computer, and then they would and computers were around, to be fair. It was just a computer in each class. They was just sort of the IT spreading it out. There was a computer lab. But it was we had a computer there that we were allowed to use. We were young kids, so they're trying to teach us the basics of it and whatever else. And then it's just sort of this it's just sort of this there's this negative stigma where they would always be well, go to the library and read a book in order to get your sources. Don't use the internet. That's stupid. That's easy. And I've always thought to myself, are we trying to why do we have cars? It was kind of easy to get to school. Why don't we wait for a blizzard and then get the horse and buggy out? You know what I mean? What do you mean this is too easy? And it's like, oh, it's the dumb way to do it. It's the easy way to do it. It's the whatever excuses teachers would give us over the years. It's like, well, you're gonna have to know how to search in books. Am I? Am I gonna have to learn how to search in books? Because I can't control F
Definitely
a book.
not.
You know? And that is what was happening. And Elon Musk is 100% right. If you could message your friend instantly, like you just want to check in on your friend. You just want to check in on a friend really, really quick, and you can do it with your brain, then why you would do it. But because you picked up a cell phone, people were like, oh, he's not paying attention. Like, there's like that negative connotation, right? He's not paying attention to the situation. He's not paying attention to the people near him. What is he doing? Why does he have that phone out? What the heck's he doing? You don't know what I'm doing. I could be doing my damn taxes. Like, leave me alone. There's still that negative connotation with the phone. But it's like, there's no negative connotation against cars. But I bet I would guess, because I was not around, but I would guess that when cars came out, all the horse guys would be like, cars are for fools. Putting on my cowboy voice. Cars are for fools and city folk. We ride horses 100%. Out here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that kind of sums up the what's wrong with web development. Unfortunately, I'm kind of out of time. So we might have to just postpone the web news till next week.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Like, we had enough conversation.
Yeah, we had like... Exactly. We had a good web news kind of at the beginning. So, but next week, again, we're going to be talking about what's right with web development. So stay tuned for that as well as the web news.
Correct. So I'll run the old conclusion here then. So remember, we're on that Patreon. If you want to support the show, that's patreon.com/HTML all the things. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons, Sean from RabbitWorks JavaScript on youtube.com/RabbitWorksJavaScript, Garrick from Local Path Computing and Web Design on localpathcomputing.com, Ryan Gatchell from Blue Black Digital on blueblackdigital.com, Chris from Self-Made Web Designer on selfmadewebdesigner.com, Tim from The Web Hacker on the webhacker.com, DL Ford from dlford.io, and Bib Hashdash from 9block Media via 9blockmedia.com. Feel free to leave a comment or a review on the platform that you are listening to this on, and I will let this outro sign us off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things Podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.